Hello neighbors, it's Brad here at eTrailer, and today we're taking a look at installing the CURT Trailer Hitch receiver on a 2021 BMW 5 Series. Now this is what your hitch is going to look like when it's installed on your 5 Series, and it is going to be a nice clean look because it's a hidden cross tube, meaning the only thing that you're going to see visible once installed is going to be the 1 1/4 inch receiver tube opening as well as the safety chain loops. Now this is a class 1 hitch, which means that it's a smaller shank diameter than a traditional 2-inch. So when it comes to accessories, whether it be a cargo carrier, bike rack, or ball mount, you're not going to have as many options available, but sometimes on vehicles like this, you're kind of left with this. I have an 1 1/4 on my own personal vehicle, and it still allows me to put a cargo carrier or a bike rack on my vehicle, and that's what our neighbor is doing today. Now, all of those accessories are going to stay in place with a 1/2 inch pin and clip. Your hitch does not come with one. A lot of times your accessories will have them included. If you plan on leaving your accessory on the back of your vehicle, highly recommend picking up a locking pin and clip. That way you can lock that in place and know that no one's going to just walk away with those accessories. Now you do have a small rolled style safety chain loop, and that way you can attach your safety cables if you are planning on pulling a small trailer. Larger clevis style works well, so nice and open. And speaking of towing, this does have fairly low weight capacities, being that it's going to be a class 1 hitch. So your gross trailer weight rating is going to be 2,000 pounds, which is going to be the weight of the trailer plus the accessories loaded onto it. Your tongue weight rating, which is the downward pressure put on the inside of the receiver tube opening, is going to be 200 pounds. And that's really going to be important for any of your suspended accessories like your cargo carrier or bike rack. And with that weight capacity, you're generally going to be limited with the 1 1/4 to a 2-bike rack. Just make sure that you don't have bikes that are too heavy, but a cargo carrier can also go on here. So it definitely opens it up to what you can do. And you can tow a small trailer. You just want to make sure that you check the vehicle's owner's manual to see what it's capable of towing, and then compare that with the hitch as well as the components that you'll be using to tow that trailer. And take the lowest number of all of those. That way you're not overloading it. Now, some cargo carriers and bike racks can stow in a vertical position, and you want to make sure that it's going to be able to work. Not all vehicles allow you to do that with the way that the hitch sits. So measuring from the center of our hitch pin hole to the furthest point of the rear bumper, we're looking right at 3 inches. So I really don't worry too much that you won't be able to stow those up. Just keep in mind they may block your camera, license plate, and maybe even your taillights in that configuration. But it is a nice storage solution to kind of cut down on that space. As far as ground clearance goes, it's actually pretty decent for a sedan like this, coming in at 11.5 inches. So that's important to keep in mind for when choosing a ball mount. You can take that measurement, you can measure the coupler of your trailer, and then between those two numbers, determine the rise or drop necessary to get it nice and level. This is also something to keep in mind is with bike racks, cargo carriers, it's going to extend the length of the vehicle. So as you go up an incline, they do tilt towards the ground faster, obviously, than the vehicle. So just keep that in mind when you have those loaded up so you don't bottom out your accessories. Now when it comes to the installation, this one isn't terribly hard to do. It bolts up behind the bumper beam, so you will have to remove the fascia. There's a decent amount of hardware to be able to get this removed, but the overall process really isn't bad step by step. You will probably want an extra set of hands just to be able to get that fascia off safely. But other than that, I'll walk you through all the steps to make sure that you get your hitch installed. So let's take a look at that. Now, if you watch the video and determine it might not be something that you want to tackle, maybe you don't have the space to do it, the place to do it, or even the tools or want to do it, you can reach out to our dealer network locator to find someone close to you to get the hitch installed by a trusted individual, and then you don't even have to worry about it, and you can enjoy all the usability of your hitch. A good majority of this hitch installation is going to be removing the fascia to be able to bolt it in place, and there's going to be a decent amount of hardware. BMWs are notoriously built well, but that means there's a lot of hardware. So I do recommend having a nice organized spot to keep all that hardware. It'll make reinstallation so much easier. The first thing we're going to remove is this panel. You'll just see that there's going to be some 8mm screws that are attaching it, so we'll go ahead and get those all removed. And we'll set this panel aside. We are going to be trimming this later to make room for our hitch, but we'll just set it aside for now. On our passenger side, we're going to find that we have the active exhaust plug. We're going to get this undone there's just going to be a tab on the side. It's fairly small, so if you need to, you can use a flathead screwdriver to pry on here. I was able to get it with my fingers, so we'll just get that pulled out. I'm also going to remove this plastic clip that's on the heat shield. That'll make it a little bit easier for us to get the rest of this removed. And this will bring me to the 8mm screws that we have here. You're going to see that we have 3 of them. We'll go ahead and get those taken down. There's also going to be screws that are attaching the wheel well liner on the backside here behind the tire. The main thing that we're trying to do is get that wheel well liner to be loose. That way we can peel that back and gain access to the hardware that's attaching the fascia to the rear quarter panel. So again, it's going to be 8mm screws. We're going to go ahead and just kind of work our way. They kind of go on the bottom and then alongside here. So we'll get those taken down. Now there's a plastic nut that's kind of located in the middle of that wheel well liner. That can stay there. We really just need enough to where I can grab the wheel well liner, pull it back, and what we're going to be looking for is the bolt that's going vertical. It's located right here, and it looks to be an 8mm as well, so we'll get that removed. Now at this point, just repeat all those same steps on the other side to get that wheel well liner loose and get that bolt taken out of the fascia. Next, we need to loosen up our taillight assembly as well as gain access to a Torx bit screw that's down here that holds the bumper fascia on. And now you'll see that you'll have these plastic covers, gives it a nice clean look, but to gain access to the hardware, we're going to want to pop this out. It's pretty easy if you go to this top corner and just peel up a little bit. There's going to be these alignment tabs that just kind of snap into place, and then as you work your way down, this should come out fairly easily. And what we're going to be doing is removing the T15 Torx bit screw here, and then we're going to remove the 10mm nuts that are on the taillight, and that's just going to allow it to be a little bit looser as it is fairly tight against the fascia to be able to pop it out. So we're not going to completely remove the taillight, it's just going to make it loose. Now we're ready to take our fascia off, and I do recommend having an extra set of hands to be able to do that. It's pretty cumbersome, and you obviously don't want to drop or scratch your fascia in the process of getting your hitch installed. And for a little added protection, something that you may want to do is with painter's tape, put it along the edge of the fascia as well as the quarter panel, because as we pull this off, it may have the potential to rub against each other, and we don't want to scratch our clear coat. So I'll get mine all taped up. So I have Tom here helping me pull off the fascia. Make sure you have a space set aside to rest this while you're putting your hitch on so it doesn't get damaged. And the best way to get this popped off is start at the corner on each side, and it's just going to be a series of plastic clips. So just take your time and put just kind of even pressure, and as you make your way back, just slowly work it back. And when it gets to this point, sometimes grabbing on the bottom will help loosen it on this portion here. And then as we pop this back, there may be electrical connections, and in fact we have one here on the passenger side, so make sure you don't pull the fascia off too hard. And to get that separated, there's just going to be a push tab. If you need to, you can use a small flathead to get that separated, but with that taken off, we'll just put our fascia aside. With the fascia removed, we're going to want to take off this plastic panel that's attached to our bumper beam, because we're going to be taking the bumper beam off. And this will allow us to be able to take that off easily without any damage. It's just going to be 4 plastic push pins holding this in. So I'm using a trim panel tool. This is a great tool if you ever have to deal with these plastic push pins, but a flathead screwdriver will work if you don't have one. You'll just simply pry on that center portion and get that popped out, and then go on the back portion and pull the whole thing out. Sometimes they can separate. Just make sure you have both of the pieces together. Now there's wires attached to this, but the main thing is if you need to, you can zip tie this up. We just need to gain access to the nuts that are here. If you want to, you can also unplug this and just pull it off to the side, but you still have this electrical connection on the right side here. So it's really up to you what you want to do. For me, I'm just going to set this up and then tie it up out of the way. The bumper beam nuts are going to be an 18mm socket to get these removed. So there's 2 on each. You can see in the insets. You will want an extension to be able to gain access to these, and come off fairly easy. And we're going to want to hold on to these and the bumper beam once we get it removed, because we're going to be reusing those to get our hitch reinstalled, and we're going to be putting the bumper beam on. So don't put this too far off once you get it removed. Now we'll grab our hitch. We're going to slide this over those same studs. We'll also take our bumper beam and put that in place. And I have 2 nuts ready. That way I can just get a few threads started on each side to hold this all in place. I'm just going to get a few threads here. And once all your hardware is loosely in place, I'm just going to snug these down. Now the hitch is slotted. This is also a good time before you tighten it down just to make sure that everything's centered up. So if you find a good reference mark, you can make sure that it's aligned properly before snugging it down. Now I'm going to hit this with the impact real quick just to get everything drawn in before coming back with our torque wrench. So you don't need to get crazy here. The torque wrench will take care of all the finishing tightening. We just want this snugged up. So with the torque settings found in the instruction manual, we'll take our torque wrench in that same 18mm socket and torque these all down properly. This is going to be important because it's using studs. We want to make sure that obviously it's tight enough, but also not too tight, putting stress on that stud that we have. So we'll go through, get these all torqued down. With those torqued down, you've officially installed your hitch. So now we need to get this plastic panel put back on, and then we'll get our fascia put back on in the reverse order that we took it off. Make sure that you have all your electrical connections put back in, including the exhaust. And that underbody panel that we removed in the first step, that will be trimmed. So once we have everything back in place, we'll come back and I'll show you how to trim that out. Now for the underbody panel, it's actually pretty easy. There's a perforated section here that you just cut along, and that's going to allow you to get this back up. Now you're going to be losing 2 of the mounting points. Something I'm going to do, just because I can and it's a little bit cleaner, is I will trim out this portion, but I think I'm going to follow and kind of mirror that other side. That way you get a little bit more coverage, and you also get 1 more mounting point back. It's completely up to you, but it is definitely easier to cut the whole thing out. So you can use a pair of side cutters to just kind of clip through those perforations pretty easily. And as I do this, these are actually pretty brittle in the fact that, you know, you can kind of bend this. So I'm not going to cut this out. I don't think structurally it's really going to do a whole lot, and I'm afraid that long term this is going to kind of pop off anyway. So we'll just go ahead, we'll get this taken off. So with that back in place, I got all my hardware in. All that's left to do is load up your accessories, put it in your pin and clip, and hit the road. And that was a look at installation of the CURT Trailer Hitch receiver on a 2021 BMW 5 Series.